I need a new car, can you cosign? My brother's text blinked on my phone screen, smug as always. I stared at it, then typed back 2 words. Keep dreaming. A few minutes later, another notification lit up my phone. This time it was my dad. Big, bold letters filled the screen like a verdict. Refuse and you're cut off from family events. Cut off. From dinners where I was treated like a servant. From birthdays where my brother's gifts were mountains and mine were envelopes of pity. From holidays where my seat was at the end of the table, scraping plates while everyone else laughed. I sat there in the dim light of my apartment, their words echoing like a dare. My brother, entitled and reckless. My father, wielding threats like weapons. Both of them convinced that family loyalty meant blind obedience. But they had forgotten something. My name is Natalie Grant. I'm 27 years old. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What happens when the family that thinks they can buy your silence learns that you're the one holding the receipts? I didn't reply. Not to my brother's demands, not to my father's ultimatum. Instead, I picked up the phone and dialed a number I had been holding onto for months. A number they didn't know I had. As it rang, I pictured my father's face when the foundation he thought was his alone began to crack. The face of a man who believed threats could control me. The voice on the other end answered warmly. This is Attorney Collins. Ready to proceed. I smiled into the receiver. Yes, it's time. And just like that, the game shifted. Attorney Collins's voice was calm, confident. We've prepared everything. All we need is your go-ahead to file the paperwork. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Do it. For months I'd been collecting documents, bank transfers, tax records, property deeds, all the proof of how much I had propped up my family while they called me ungrateful. Every loan in my name. Every temporary favor that turned permanent. Every time they told me it was my duty because I was the responsible one. By morning, the plan was in motion. Quietly. Legally. Meanwhile, my brother's texts piled up. So? Are you co-signing or not? Dad says you're being selfish. Fine, but don't come crying when you're not invited to Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving. The holiday where I cooked the entire meal while they laughed in the living room. What a loss. Then Dad's voice thundered through my voicemail. Natalie, this is your last chance. Family loyalty means sacrifice. If you won't help your brother, you're no daughter of mine. I played it twice, then saved it. Evidence. At lunch, Collins called again. Paperwork filed. Clause 7.2 of your joint accounts protects you from being liable for any of their debts moving forward. And, she paused, almost amused, it also freezes access to the emergency fund unless you authorize it. I grinned. That fund had always been their safety net. Their cushion. Their weapon when they wanted to remind me I wasn't in control. By dinner, my phone lit up again. This time, not with demands, but with panic. Natalie, what happened to the account? Why can't we withdraw? I set the phone down, calm washing over me. For once, the silence wasn't mine. By dawn, the storm had arrived. 32 missed calls. A dozen frantic texts. My brother's messages alternated between rage and begging. You froze the account? Are you insane? Unfreeze it now, or Dad's cutting you out for good. Please, Nat, I already told the dealership I'd be there this week. They're holding the car. I almost felt sorry for him, almost. But then I remembered every time he borrowed money and called it a loan he'd never repay. Every birthday where he got a brand new gadget while I unwrapped a sweater. Every smug grin when Dad called him the future of the family. Now the future looked a little shaky. At noon, Dad finally showed up at my office. He stormed in like he owned the place, slamming his hands on my desk. Natalie, you've embarrassed this family. Do you know what people will say if they find out you turned against your own brother? I closed my laptop calmly. You mean what will they say when they find out you threatened to cut me off from family events because I wouldn't co-sign his debt? Or when they learn I was the one covering the bills behind the scenes for years? His face went red. That was your duty. I leaned forward, my voice steady. No, Dad. That was my choice. And now I choose differently. He opened his mouth, but before he could speak, I pressed play on my phone. His voicemail boomed through the office. Family loyalty means sacrifice. If you won't help your brother, you're no daughter of mine. His eyes flickered. He knew what it meant. Proof. Leverage. Power. For the first time, he looked unsure. I smiled. Game over. Dad froze as his own words echoed from my phone, filling the office. The same threats he'd barked with pride now hung in the air like evidence in a courtroom. You recorded me? He hissed. I shook my head slowly. No, Dad. You recorded yourself. I just pressed save. His jaw tightened. You wouldn't dare use that against me. I leaned back in my chair, calm, steady. I don't have to. Imagine what happens when Grandma hears it. Or Aunt Linda. Or the investors who always brag about how honorable you are. Do you think they'll see loyalty? Or abuse? The color drained from his face. My brother texted again, desperate this time. Nat, please. The dealership called. I'll lose the deposit. Just sign for me. I'll owe you forever. Forever. The same word he'd used the last 5 times. I slipped my phone into my bag and looked Dad in the eye. You wanted to cut me off from family events? Perfect. I'm cutting myself off, too. Except I'm taking my accounts, my business, and every last string you thought you had on me. He tried one last jab. You'll regret this when you're alone. I smiled. Funny. I've never felt less alone in my life. Because I wasn't playing their game anymore. I was rewriting the rules. Dad slammed the folder shut, grabbed it off my desk, and stormed out without another word. My staff watched from the doorway, wide-eyed. I just sat back, steady, letting the silence crown me. For the first time, the threat wasn't hanging over me. It was hanging over him. 2 days later, the wider family knew. Not because I told them, but because Dad couldn't hide it. Word leaked through cousins, then uncles, then Grandma herself. Everyone had questions. Why would you try to force Natalie into co-signing? Is it true you threatened to cut her off? I didn't need to say a word. The voicemail, forwarded to one relative, spread like wildfire. Dad's booming voice, if you won't help your brother, you're no daughter of mine, was now the family's favorite topic. At Sunday dinner, I stayed home, sipping coffee while my phone buzzed with updates. A cousin texted me. Your dad stormed out halfway through. Grandma told him she's ashamed. Said no father should treat his daughter like that. Another. Your brother kept whining about the car. No one had sympathy. Aunt Linda told him to grow up. I almost laughed out loud. The same relatives who once looked past every slight against me now saw the truth. Loud and undeniable. Meanwhile, my brother's text shifted tone again. Nat, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have asked. Just can you help me, please? I'll work for you if I have to. For years, I'd been the one reduced to begging. Now the roles had reversed. I typed one reply. No. And for once, that single word felt like the loudest sentence I'd ever spoken. Because the power wasn't in the evidence anymore. It wasn't even in their humiliation. It was in finally saying no and meaning it. By midweek, the silence from Dad was deafening. No calls, no emails, no bold demands in all caps. For a man who had spent his life barking orders, the quiet was the clearest sign of defeat. But my brother? He couldn't stop. Nat, I'll pay you back. Just this once. The dealer said they'll blacklist me if I don't follow through. Please, Dad won't help. I need you. Each text was a reminder of the role they had tried to lock me into, provider, fixer, servant. And with every vibration of my phone, my resolve hardened. That night, Attorney Collins called again. Everything's finalized. They can't touch your accounts, and the joint fund is permanently frozen. You're in the clear. I thanked her, a weight lifting from my chest that I hadn't even realized I was still carrying. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next crisis to land in my lap. I was free. To celebrate, I drove out to a dealership, not for my brother's car, but for mine. The one I'd been putting off because family emergencies always came first. When I slid behind the wheel of a gleaming midnight blue sedan, the salesman asked, Would you like to finance or buy outright? Outright, I said, handing over my card. The refund from the frozen account made it easier than ever. Driving home, the city lights reflected off the hood, and I realized something powerful. I hadn't just cut them off. I had stepped into my own life fully. They had tried to make me feel powerless. Instead, I had proven I was unstoppable. And their silence was proof they knew it. The face-to-face came sooner than I expected. Saturday morning, a knock rattled my apartment door. When I opened it, Dad stood there, shoulders heavy, my brother hovering just behind him like a guilty shadow. "Natalie," Dad began, his voice low, not booming this time. "We need to talk." I crossed my arms. "Funny, last time you wanted to talk." It came in all caps. He winced, glancing at my brother. "We overreacted. Your brother made mistakes, but he's young. We just thought." I cut him off. "You thought I'd roll over. You thought I'd sign my name, ruin my credit, carry his debts, and call it loyalty. That's not family. That's exploitation." My brother shuffled his feet. "I'm sorry, Nat. I didn't mean." I raised a hand. "No, you meant it. You meant every request, every demand, every assumption that I'd sacrifice myself for you. You just didn't expect me to say no." Dad's jaw tightened, the old pride flickering. "Do you really want to cut ties over something like this?" I stepped closer, my voice steady. "I didn't cut ties. You did, when you threatened me, when you chose his comfort over my dignity. You made it clear I wasn't a daughter to protect, but a tool to use." The silence between us stretched, heavy and unfixable. My brother's eyes dropped, Dad's fists clenched, but neither had words left. I opened the door wider, not to invite them in, but to make my point clear. This is my space, my rules, my life, and unless you can respect that, you don't belong here. They stepped back, defeated. For once, the power was entirely mine. When the door finally shut behind them, I leaned against it and exhaled. The same people who had once dictated my every move had just walked away powerless, their threats hollow, their pride cracked wide open. Weeks later, the fallout became permanent. At family gatherings, their absence was obvious because they stopped inviting me, thinking it would punish me. But I didn't feel punished. I felt free. My holidays weren't filled with forced smiles and endless chores. They were mine, quiet dinners with friends, laughter that wasn't conditional, celebrations where I belonged. The voicemail still lived in my phone, Dad's booming voice snarling. "If you won't help your brother, you're no daughter of mine." I didn't delete it. I didn't need to. It was proof, a reminder of the line they had drawn, and how I had chosen to step over it into something better. One evening, I drove my new midnight blue sedan through the city, windows down, music playing. Freedom hummed in the engine, in the road stretching out ahead. This was the car my brother thought would be his, the signature my dad thought he could force from me. Instead, it was mine, bought outright, untethered, undeniable. When I parked, I snapped a photo, me leaning against the hood, skyline glowing behind me. Caption: "Funny thing about threats, they only work if you care about losing what they offer." The likes and comments rolled in. Supportive, admiring. People who saw me not as a freeloader, not as a backup plan, but as someone who had finally chosen herself. And that was the sweetest justice. Not revenge, not payback, just peace. They had tried to cut me off. Instead, I walked away whole. This story shows the bitter truth of family betrayal and the sweet taste of standing up for yourself. Sometimes those closest to you will test your limits, use your kindness, and expect your silence. But when you draw the line, you discover strength you never knew you had. The real lesson is simple. Loyalty is not slavery, and family doesn't mean blind sacrifice. It means respect. Without respect, there is no bond worth keeping. Monetization safe, YouTube friendly, and built to keep viewers hooked, this script carries raw emotion, poetic justice, and a satisfying closure that resonates with millions who've been overlooked or used by the people they trusted most.